warmer weather this week. I think if a city ever has. Fern was an historic moment for Nashville. It demands an historic response. That's why this week I asked 9 Nashvillians to come together with other regional partners for a winter storm response commission to take a very open-eyed, comprehensive look at how we handled the storm. That includes NES and it includes Metro government. Because we know there will be another emergency, another flood, another unprecedented weather event, a crisis of some other kind. I want us to identify lessons learned now to do even better the next time. We need accountability. We also need recovery. That is the work of our Restore Nashville campaign. Restore Nashville began in the very cold days and nights right after Fern hit our city, and the work is happening on many fronts. For example, we've already picked up nearly 400,000 cubic yards of storm-related debris, but we still have 150 crews with the Nashville Department of Transportation out every day. Financial assistance is also available to people who need it. United Way, one of our Restore Nashville partners, has already distributed more than $576,000 to nonprofits on the ground, and the first third of that money has already reached individuals and families. We started the term talking about how Nashville moves, works, and grows as we work to restore Nashville following the storm. How Nashville helps has become a core part of that. We've unveiled a series of aid to lighten the financial impact of the storm. We've waived permitting fees, worked with the property assessor to reappraise value of homes substantially damaged or destroyed in the storm. Metro Water Services has legislation proceeding through council to cut the cost of water, especially for folks who had to drip pipes for days on end during the coldest parts of the storm. And now we're coupling those cost savings with a great opportunity a week from tomorrow at a financial empowerment day at the Magruder Center on 25th Avenue North. This is an opportunity not just in North Nashville, but for the whole city to get free, trusted financial advice on buying a home, paying for college, starting a business, or living on a fixed income as a retiree. Bring your child. Junior Achievement has coloring books and instructors that teach financial literacy. Our Financial Empowerment Center team helps parents with financial planning, and grandparents can come for legacy planning or connection to social resources. This event is part of the investment from Fifth Third, their generous $20 million partnership with us that has allowed us to invest more deeply in North Nashville. As the Magruder model shows success, we can take it out to other areas of Nashville. We know financial literacy and empowerment are key because they can pave the way for generational change and upward mobility. When we couple financial expertise with better transportation options, preservation of affordable housing stock, we're creating an environment where everyone can more easily stay. How Nashville grows depends on how affordable we keep our housing. The Catalyst Fund that I announced in 2024 is a critical way that we preserve housing that might otherwise be lost to expensive redevelopment. In the last 2 months, the Nashville Catalyst Fund closed on 5 loans totaling more than $11 million. $11 million, which will produce or preserve more than 500 homes. Improving housing affordability must be done with everyone at the table, government, businesses, and nonprofits, and we must gather at the table with as many tools as possible. So it is great to see one of our newer tools producing more affordability. And thanks to those of you who joined us yesterday at Fort Negley for a special groundbreaking ceremony, launching construction of Phase 1 of the master plan to revive the fort and transform the park into an open-air museum. Goals for Phase 1 are to reclaim the land for the park. This includes depaving old parking lots, improving the visitor experience, and telling more of the history. Historical interpretation will be integrated throughout the entire site, including a memorial wall naming some of the people and their families who were involved in construction. A lot of people don't know this story, including many who've lived here all our lives. The fort was a focal point for America's most profound battle over civil rights and black history, and today we're deeply engaged in a modern version of that battle, arguing over whether we can even claim this history. That's why the Fort Negley story is one worth knowing, especially right now. I recommend people get over to the Visitor Center and learn some more about the history of the fort and start to see the park taking shape. On February 28th, I'll also be visiting the Nashville Black Market at their annual Black History Month Expo. It's a great chance to shop local. I've been going to the market for a long time, and the creativity of the vendors is always impressive. After the ice storm, shopping local and supporting our business community is a step any of us can take to support our friends and neighbors who own the businesses we all love. I want to give a shout out to the Mountain Lions at Mountain View Elementary in Antioch. I'll be there next week to read to students for this year's Book 'em Read Me Day. This will be my first Metro Schools visit since the school board voted to adjust school start times for better student performance, something I've advocated for a long time. I'm excited for the positive impacts we are expecting to see on students' learning and health. And with that, happy to take questions. Eli.
For people who are seeing above average, sometimes far above average electric and water bills, can you further explain what situation they're in, what options they have?
Yeah, we're still waiting to hear more from NES. I would definitely refer questions specifically about their regulatory limitations on credits to them. The thing we worked on with Metro Water was a combination of late fees, cutoffs being suspended, but then also a one-time credit. And so for that, we're hoping that credit is actually connected directly to the increase in water usage we saw as people were dripping for keeping pipes not from freezing. Yeah.
Are you still confident that NES rates are not going to go up? And is that something that you and your Winter Storm Commission are going to work on?
I'm sure that will be a topic of discussion. My early conversations from NES suggest to me that they're exploring every possible financial tool to keep rates from going up. I'm sure you heard their cost estimates of $110 to $140 million from the winter storm. They are working diligently on financial tools that would keep ratepayers from being impacted by that. Austin, do you have a question?
You can see my eyes.
I could.
There's been a lot of reporting from myself and others over the past few days about a historic property in East Nashville, last Home Record store, that was just kind of unilaterally demolished without going through the permitting process. I talked with a couple of folks in the course of my reporting about whether the penalties for doing that are stringent enough, where you've got like triple fees for doing so, but they're already kind of low, and then you can freeze other properties, but to what end, right? So do you have any thoughts or perspective on whether you feel like there's enough in the way to mitigate folks from doing that?
This is a good question. And I remember when I first got elected, kind of in the first days I was in office, we had kind of gone through, in fact, on Broadway, the demolition of the old Trail West building. That one was a frustrating one because it seemed like a series of actual permits had been sought and granted, and it sort of seemed like a series of partial demolitions along the way ultimately led to demolition of the entire building. I think we were pretty fortunate over the past decade that you didn't see sort of a habit of property owners that were taking ownership of historic properties trying to work around the system or not care about the fees. I haven't dug into this case specifically, but I think especially given the reforms that we had with the Metro Historic Zoning Commission and planning's involvement, there's probably going to be some more attention probably by both commissions on what can be done. You may be aware of this. We have some pretty significant limitations under state statute that limit us on fees. And that's been true across a whole series of things. I think the hardest part about the demolition case is it's not like that's a rebuilding effort. But I'll tell you, when we went through the Second Avenue process, I know for myself as a district council member, for Mayor Cooper at the time, working with codes, working with historic to make sure that the bombing wasn't an excuse for people to knock down historic structures that could otherwise be preserved was a priority. And I think in most cases we were pretty successful at keeping that fabric. So it does bear some examination, but I haven't had a chance to dive into that specific case. Yeah.
Yesterday, Lieutenant Governor Ray Negley said the Three Stooges could have done a better job when referring to NES leadership when preparing for the storm. We've seen a lot of pushback from other lawmakers at the state level, too. Is there any response you have to them?
I mean, I don't have a response to his comment. I feel like we certainly invited NES leadership into this very room to talk about frustrations with the response, and I think that prompted some immediate positive movement on their part. I think since then you've seen the board get engaged. It sounds like the board's working quickly on an independent assessment, and I think that's what I'm looking at. I want to see NES's independent assessment. I want to see the work of our commission. I'm not sure if the Lieutenant Governor was looking at something, specific in that. But I know, for instance, with our overall response, we got schools open much more quickly than other communities across Tennessee. We've seen since NES got power restored to almost all customers, lingering frustrations with internet connectivity and some other things from other providers. So we're going to dig into the whole thing and come up with, I hope, very thorough answers to the questions people have had. But I'm not sure what he's basing that on.
Mayor, the news
Hang on,
that,
Dennis. I'm going to the back.
In regards to NES, Tennessee Republicans say they want to make a decision about NES future before they adjourn this legislative session. Your commission's final report is due in August. Do you have any plans to speed up that timeline?
Well, I think to be clear about a couple things. One, NES seems to be looking at an accelerated assessment. My sense is they want to have that done probably to meet that deadline. I think NES board members at least have been engaged with state legislators. Our Winter Storm Commission it will include NES, but it is also going to include OEM, NDOT, a lot of the overall recovery process from an emergency management standpoint, operational standpoint of the city, how partners interacted with Metro. I know the legislature is very focused on NES in particular, and I think NES's board, NES's management are aware of that, and they're going to probably respond directly.
And speaking of board, do you have any plans to appoint any more representation in the outside areas? Because areas like Laverne have been talking about moving away from NES and going with Middle Tennessee Electric.
Yeah, I've talked to some of the city and county mayors around Davidson County, and one of the hard parts is the Metro Charter does not give me the unilateral authority to appoint out-of-area board members, so that's another conversation that we are having. There is a private act that's involved with NES under state law. There's our charter, and I'm open to having those conversations, but it's not a thing I could just go to the next board appointment available and say we're going to appoint someone from Hendersonville. That's not a power I have right now.
Mayor,
Cynthia, Dennis, I'll get to you.
Okay.
I'm curious, you've got Andrea in the room, like, if we're getting any closer to a main library.
I'm happy to connect you directly to Andrea for this. My sense on the latest updates is there is now a lot of clarity on some of the work that can be done on the garage, but I know that, I'll just say it this way, in my conversations with Terry Luke, the director of the library, I don't think there's anyone more frustrated than her about being unable to open the branch as soon as she had hoped to. They have continued to find and have been told by the people inspecting the facility that the deeper they have gotten into the facility, the more challenging it is to get things open from smoke damage and other related damages to the fire. So I will say it this way, the library is not intentionally delaying in any way the reopening, and they are focused on safety, and I'm not going to ask them to focus on anything other than safety.
Is Metro footing that bill for those repairs, or are there any open insurance claims that you're aware of?
I know that there are a bunch of claims and contracts related to the garage. The library itself, I think we're going to have to figure out how Metro's claims, all the people that had parking contracts in the garage, NDOT as the owner of the garage, not sure how that's all going to play out in terms of who pays for what and on what timeline. So still some lack of clarity there. Dennis?
Yeah, so the news at Acme Feed & Seed might close. Huge outcry in the public, and it actually brought other businesses out and saying, we're suffering too, we're going to close. And it's kind of this cocktail, this 1-2 punch of rising valuations and property tax. Is there anything the city can do to stop us from losing some of these treasured businesses?
There's all kinds of smaller incentives we have, Dennis. We've got a fast-growing business grant program that is a part of our economic and community development strategy. We also, I would say it this way, the things that we are doing to support the business environment from a public safety, ease of commerce, access to growth, those are all things that are part of our community improvement program of school service and safety. We have been focused on workforce development for employee availability. We have been focused on, specifically with Acme, we've worked with Tom since I took office on some issues with NDOT and access to his facility to try to smooth things out there. We are working every day to support the business environment, but I think, there's there's nothing different about this moment than has happened across the history of the city, except that this appraisal, after a period of, our last appraisal occurring right after COVID, seems to have been steeper across the board than previously. So
That's my follow-up. This is from Tom. His property tax went up 450%, and he can appeal it.
yeah.
Now, the appeal, of course, he owes it Friday. The appeal's September 1st. If he loses his appeal in any way, he pays the 129 Friday, appeals it, he not only owes the money, he has to pay interest. It just doesn't feel fair to survival, because we want these people to survive, right?
We do. We are absolutely hoping to have an opportunity where not only residents thrive in their home, but businesses thrive wherever they're operating in Nashville. You probably know this. The state has very strict controls on the revenue sources we have available and the flexibility we have. Nobody here can make unilateral adjustments to any specific property's valuation. That's between the comptroller, the state board of equalization, our local board of equalization, and the assessor. That's where all those conversations have to happen. We've had conversations with the comptroller's office about the equalization backlog at the state, and here locally we have flooded the zone with new appointees and alternates to try to make sure we are moving through that process. Also, that I haven't had this conversation with property owners we've heard from, except on a handful of cases, but the appeals process also started last year. So I don't know where Tom is on that front, but hopefully any property owner that is concerned about the unfairness of it would look at that. Also, still unclear to me if Tom is an owner in the property. If he's not, I don't know how that appeal is working.
I can tell you, because I know, obviously, that the property tax is a pass-through part of the lease.
Yeah,
So
I just don't know if he can appeal as a lessee. So that's, there's some technical.
He legally can.
Okay, so then,
And then
that's.
the last thing is, with the state threatening, the state is planning property tax caps that the
Yeah.
entire municipal league is going to be against.
Yeah.
Your reaction to that, and is there some compromise where if it goes to 2%, 6%, it's going to cause a lot of problems, but it looks like there's a real initiative and a real motivation to cap property tax like the Proposition 13 in California.
Yeah, I would go back to the entire way we looked at this year was government also faces increased costs. And so our entire property tax rate adjustment was based on the 5-year impact of inflation on cost of governing. And we know that has other issues, but we also know that it isn't just a cost side thing. We are trying very much to involve not just the business community, but Nashvillians in the process of what we're getting. We just had our popular annual financial report come out that shows the performance of the city. We maintain, we just this week had our finance department once again secure stability in our credit ratings. We're trying to do this on a fiscally responsible basis, and we're also trying to make sure that as we do that, the entire community, including our business community, is benefiting from it. And I always would encourage people to be in touch with state legislators, either for more flexibility on this stuff, but capping it would be a disaster for Nashville in the same way that it would be a disaster for cities across Tennessee, which is why you're seeing the Tennessee Municipal League jump in.
Let's do one more.
Araceli? Sorry, Jerry, I'm going to Araceli and we'll see if we can get back.
This week we saw an increase in ICE detainments across neighborhoods with large immigrant populations. We've spoken to children who say their mother, father was here 20, 30 years, they're no longer with them. Is there any indication that the city has that this is something that is just going to be routine from now on? This morning, 2 cases reported again.
Yeah, we have not had, again, any kind of advisory from the state or federal government about changes in posture for ICE presence. I haven't examined these cases. I think and we saw a follow-up yesterday from Nashville Banners reporting on how the THP in particular was engaged in this. I don't know how the detainments are occurring. I don't know if they're working with other, for instance, state law enforcement, but we have not had an advisory reach our office from either federal or state government saying, here's how this is going to be. So we're keeping a careful eye on it. Rest assured that Wally Dietz, as Director of Law, is continuing to focus on fighting for the rights of Nashvillians, and we will continue that focus.
Is the city going to ask perhaps federal aid or federal agencies kind of what's going on?
We have made contact with, I think you know from last year, Governor Lee appointed sort of an immigration czar. We have made contact with that person, and we'll probably ask some follow-ups based on this, what appears to be an increase in recent activity.
All right, one more from Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry.
This will be easy, Mayor. Last year there was an inspection, I think General Services did it, of the fire halls in Metro. Several fire halls were found to have asbestos, some had mold, and there were some pretty stringent or pretty strong findings in those. The fire department, the halls are still open. There doesn't appear to have been any kind of remediation or anything. Are you aware of that, and what's the plan moving forward?
I hadn't seen that report, but I know that I've worked with Director Chief Swan. Again, shortly after taking office, we had some funding for them to update some master planning processes. You've probably seen already, we're moving both on a new headquarters in Fire Station 2. We're constructing a couple new ones, but we always, I will say, Department of General Services works with all the departments. We've done similar assessments after the storm, focused on parks, and we're going to look at everything we can to get deferred maintenance into a condition where there shouldn't be any risks in anybody's working environment. But I know sometimes these assessments show you the level of work that has to be done. And again, these things are tied together. Everything Dennis is asking about, we want the city to be in a state of good repair, and that is not something that happens for free.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.